guys, if you're new to Deception Bytes, hit the like and subscribe button and be sure to hit the bell to be notified of future videos. If you wish to support the channel, the links are in the description below. Now, fasten your seatbelt. Here we go. Okay guys, I'm back again for video number 2, and it is still Sunday, September 8th, and it is 11:38 p.m. So, this one's not going to be as long. I meant for the other one to be short, but nah. And this is what I ate in between the last video and this video. So I don't know if you can see this, but yeah, I've got this thing for watermelons. Let me put this down here or I'll end up spilling it. I've got this thing for watermelons. I don't know, but now I think I ate too much watermelon. Not feeling so great right now. Anyway, let's get back into the news. We're going to pick up from where I left off. But first, actually, I have to show you something because someone just sent this to me. And by just sent it to me, I mean just sent it to me. So it must be meant to be because you've got to see this. You've got to see this. All right. And yes, it's humorous. It's a new RX prescription for Trump derangement syndrome, and it's called Trumpzalta. Now, I think you'll get a kick out of this. This is so well done. It's 2 minutes and 9 seconds, but, well, I think that you will enjoy every single minute of it.
Do you experience ongoing severe depression, headaches, long bouts of uncontrollable crying? Have you tried therapy? You may suffer from TDS. Trump derangement syndrome is a serious illness that attacks the central nervous system. It can lead to public embarrassment, extreme rage, and sometimes even violence. TDS is made worse by consuming fake news media from corporations such as NPR and CNN. But you're not alone. TDS affects over half of Democrats and nearly 99% of leftists. Doctors are beginning to understand the illness. TDS interferes with the areas of the brain that are responsible for rational thinking and that regulate appropriate emotional responses. With this knowledge, scientists have innovated a new treatment for TDS. Introducing Trumpzalta. Trumpzalta is the only known treatment for TDS. If others have mentioned that you may have TDS, you can speak with your doctor to see if Trumpzalta is right for you. Become you again. Trumpzalta is not right for everyone. Some common side effects are hallucinations, clinical insanity, stomach cramps, and rapid onset explosive diarrhea. Ask your doctor about Trumpzalta.
You've got to admit, that was good. Really. Trumpzalta. Yes, recommend it to your friends and neighbors who may be suffering from this syndrome. Anyway, let's get back to the news because that wasn't it. All right, now let's just jump in here anywhere, like maybe the beginning, because it's a very good place to start. All righty, Kamala Harris. Government can and should legislate your meat consumption to combat climate change. Yes, they're all going to be having us eat fake meat. That's what they're pushing with this Beyond Meat and so forth. Some of it is made with fetal tissue, and they even have one that bleeds like a real burger. Now, you tell me how they do that. I don't know, but I wish that Kamala Harris would stay out of our refrigerators and wherever else she likes to stick her nose. You know, I don't like this woman. I'm not going to say I hate her because, she is, she definitely needs to find the truth, but my gosh, she irritates me. During CNN's town hall on climate change Wednesday evening, Democratic presidential candidate Senator Kamala Harris said she wants to ban fracking and reduce the amount of red meat that Americans eat as part of her $10 trillion plan to save the planet. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking, Harris said, adding that if elected, she would take executive action on day one to prohibit fracking on public lands. We have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact of the health and safety of communities. The balance that we have to strike here, frankly, is about what government can and should do around creating incentives and then banning certain behaviors, said Harris. I would like to remind Kamala that government was never intended to Sorry, the cat just, that was Xander, just jumped onto the place where I have my microphone. Anyway, government was never intended to legislate our activities like that. In fact, they are supposed to be working for us. That's right. And as long as it's not illegal or immoral or hurts anyone else, then I don't really think that, it's any of her business. Well, even if our actions are immoral, but they're not illegal, it's none of her business. That's between us and God. So anyway, if we elect Kamala, which none of us will, we'll all have less pork on our fork. And less beef, too. What rhymes with beef? We'll have less beef on our, I don't know. All right. So what do you think about this? And she says, just to be perfectly honest with you, I love cheeseburgers from time to time, right? I just do, she continued. But there has to be also what we do in terms of creating incentives of what we will eat in a healthy way, that we will encourage moderation and that we will be educated about the effect of our eating habits on our environment. And we have to do a much better job of that. And the government has to do a much better job of that because it's the government's responsibility for what you eat. Did you know that? They're going to start putting little cameras in your home and seeing how much meat you eat. And then they'll charge you maybe an extra tax, like a carbon tax or something, if you eat too much meat. Okay, I'm being a little facetious, but this is absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. Yes, I agree. We all should eat less meat, more vegetables, more fruit. Absolutely. But, this is the woman that, was chowing down on a pork chop. I saw this. She was going, This is good stuff. And so is Pete Buttigieg. What is it with all the pork chops? I don't know. Anyway, alrighty. So there's that. And I can't remember what this is, but I bet you it's good because I wouldn't. Okay. Oh, yes. Chick-fil-A has opened their first international store. And where have they opened it? In Toronto, which is not that far from me. And yes, as a matter of fact, I do intend on visiting it because I love Chick-fil-A. I've always loved Chick-fil-A. So, they're calling it, now they're not saying that they're protesting the store because that it's Christian. It's owned by Christians. No. They're protesting it because they say that the store is transphobic. Yes, that's what they're saying. So they staged a die-in, but unfortunately none of them died. They just laid there like they were dead. And people had to walk over them to get their chicken. And they did. Yeah, people still went in and got chicken. Lots and lots of people. So this person, IET, says they realize that Chick-fil-A hires and doesn't discriminate against LGB. They realize that there has never been one single instance of discrimination towards patrons or employees in their history. So are they protesting because of the owner's religion? Because that's discrimination. Of course that's what they're protesting. But they're not going to come right out and say that because they're not honest enough. Because they know that, well, that's frowned on. So yes, here are all the Chick-fil-A protesters and, well, yeah. I'm ashamed to say that these are my fellow Canadians. Very ashamed to say. All right, let's go on. And let me, oh yes. Here's something that's interesting. Sure is. Bernie Sanders announces support for global eugenics and depopulation, calls on accelerating abortions in countries populated by people of color. Yeah, that was Thursday, September 5th. What is with this mug that he has? He just always looks angry. Okay, in a bizarre, almost surreal CNN town hall event that repeatedly claimed hurricanes are all man-made, Democrat presidential candidate Bernie Sanders called for a global-scale eugenics program to reduce human population by accelerating abortions in countries populated by people of color. No, that's not racist at all. Advocacy for all this came from Sanders' response to a pre-screened question from an audience member named Martha Redioff. A teacher from New Milford, Connecticut. Her question is heavily peppered with presuppositions, such as claiming abortion is empowering women. The question was obviously intended to push Sanders towards a more radical left-wing position, and he took the bait. Here's her question. Excuse me while I scroll forward. Good evening. Human population growth has more than doubled in the past 50 years. The planet cannot sustain this growth. I realize that this is a poisonous topic for politicians, but it's crucial to face. Empowering women and educating everyone on the need to curb population growth seems a reasonable campaign to enact. Would you be courageous enough to discuss this issue and make it a key feature in a plan to address climate catastrophe? Bernie Sanders' reply. I can know what his reply is going to be without even reading it. But let's go ahead and read it just for fun. Well, Martha, the answer is yes. And the answer has everything to do with the fact that women in the United States of America, by the way, have a right to control their own bodies and make reproductive decisions. And the Mexico City Agreement, which denies American aid to those organizations around the world that allow women to have abortions or even get involved in birth control, to me is totally absurd. So I think especially in poor countries around the world where women do not necessarily want to have large numbers of babies and where they can have the opportunity through birth control to control the number of kids they have, something I very strongly support. Well, he didn't come right out and say, that he wants to kill more brown people. But is that what he meant? What Bernie Sanders is really saying here is that America should export more abortion funding and services to third world countries that are largely populated by people of color. Secondly, Sanders did not in any way push back against the population control portion of the question. The question was strongly twisted to imply that pushing depopulation requires courage, and Sanders affirmed that he's all in for reducing human population as a means to address the climate catastrophe. This is what the deranged anti-human left has come to, exporting the murder of human babies in the name of saving the planet from climate change, a completely fabricated quack science fiction that's been aggressively pushed by the fake news media like CNN and New York Times. In pushing for global depopulation goals, Bernie Sanders mirrors the efforts of former President Richard Nixon's science advisor, Dr. Lee Dubridge. In 1969, he advocated lacing U.S. food exports with infertility chemicals to cause miscarriages, infertility, and spontaneous abortions in third world nations. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. This eugenic program was documented by the New York Times in November 4th, 1969 article by Gladwin Hill entitled "A Sterility Drug in Food is Hinted. Biologist Stresses Need to Curb Population Growth." That article quotes Dr. Lee Dubridge, the science advisor to President Nixon, as saying population control should be the prime task of every government. Wow. No, really. Wow. I'll say it backwards. Wow. The New York Times article quotes Dr. Paul Ehrlich of Stanford University, a depopulation advocate, as well as President Richard Nixon's chief science advisor, Dr. Lee Dubridge, who said that population control should be the prime task of every government. In the article, Dr. Ehrlich laments the fact that the biologists believe compulsory family regulation will be necessary to retard population growth. In essence, he is arguing that the government should be in charge of reproductive rights, determining who is allowed to reproduce and who must be sterilized. To achieve the sterilization goals, he urged establishing a federal population commission with a large budget for propaganda, reports the New York Times. He also called for the addition of temporary sterilant to staple food or to the water supply in order to cause mandatory infertility. Last night on CNN, Bernie Sanders just echoed the depopulation agenda of President Richard Nixon's science advisor, who openly called for the covert sterilization of impoverished people of color who live in low-income countries. Bernie Sanders, in other words, is a eugenist, and his eugenics scheme specifically targets people of color for expanded abortions, i.e. infanticide, and depopulation. Notably, Democrats almost universally endorse post-birth abortions, infanticide for any reason whatsoever. Thanks to these sick left-wing child mutilators, abortion has become synonymous with the murder of infants, and this achieves the depopulation goals of less left-wing globalists. Oh, and it also pads their pocketbooks too, because a woman goes in for an abortion, but she's not told that her fetal tissues, the stem cells, every single part of that aborted baby will be used by the medical community or what have you, or research, whatever. Yeah, they don't tell the women that. Yeah, and they don't help the women by, the women don't get any of that. No, they pay to have the abortion, but they actually make money twice off her through selling her infant and the parts, etc., and because she has had to pay for the procedure. Yeah. Notably, depopulation is also CNN's position, since CNN screened all the questions and fed the presuppositions to the candidates during its 7-hour broadcast that spread wildly false information about climate science, hurricanes, and human population. Well, what else do they spread except for disinformation or false information or outright lies? What else are they spreading? Well, beside hate and, malice and all those things. Yeah. This echoes the covert vaccine sterilization program run by the United Nations in Kenya, where a Kenyan Catholic bishops' organization discovered that vaccines they were administering to young women were found to be deliberately laced with infertility chemicals. This was confirmed in a science paper that detailed the spiking of vaccines with infertility chemicals. Isn't that nice? So I guess if you're poor and brown, they think that they deserve the right to just force sterilize you without your consent. Unbelievable. These people have no value for human life whatsoever. None. All right. Now, Let's go back. No, really, let's. All right, and let me see. Let's look at this because this is interesting. I don't know what to think about this. All right, it says Chinese submarine sank the Conception. The Conception, of course, being the boat fire in California there, and where all the people died, unfortunately. Well, except for I think 4 crew members. Might have been 5, 4 or 5. The Department of Defense source, speaking under promise of anonymity, claims a Chinese Type 093 attack submarine torpedoed the Conception, a 75-foot commercial diving vessel that mysteriously burst into flames off the California coast early Monday morning. The ship carried 33 passengers and 6 crew members. While 5 of 6 crew members survived, it was 5, all passengers are presumed dead. Not presumed dead, they are dead. One survivor, a diving instructor, told Guardian reporter Adam Fish that he heard a loud thud as if something had impacted the port side of the ship moments before a blazing inferno engulfed the Conception. His comment, however, was magically stricken from public record within hours of his willingness to come forward with his tale. According to our source, a U.S. Los Angeles Class 688 attack sub was patrolling U.S. territorial waters near Santa Cruz when it detected the acoustic, hang on here, when it detected the acoustic signature of a nearby foreign submarine. The boat's sonar operator identified it as one of 7 known Type 093 subs, and the boat's skipper, believing the 688 had not been detected, began shadowing the Chinese sub. At approximately 3:25 a.m. local time, the Type 093 slowed to 5 knots and changed course to intercept and evidently compute a firing solution on the Conception. 5 minutes later, 2 Chinese Yu-6 torpedoes slammed into Conception's hull, igniting thousands of gallons of combustible fuel. The vessel foundered, split in half, and slowly sank into the murky depths of the Pacific. Now, to me, this sounds consistent with what happened. It makes sense because that boat was engulfed immediately and sank very quickly. The 688 skipper, our source said, monitored the attack and contacted United States Pacific Fleet Command in Hawaii. He requested permission to engage the Type 093, but was told to stand down and to distance himself from the aggressing Chinese sub. The captain was ready to shoot and was astonished at his orders. A communist submarine had just sunk a civilian boat with Americans on board, and he was told not to intervene. An act of war had been committed, but the Los Angeles-class sub reversed course and exited the area. By the time the Coast Guard arrived on scene, the Conception was ablaze and the Chinese sub had egressed the area. It probably rigged for silent running and headed for deeper waters, our source said. Again, asked why President Trump has not gone public with the incident or responded militarily against China, our source said he believes the president has postponed an official announcement until a motive for the vicious attack is discovered. Moreover, Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin and U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer have allegedly cautioned Trump not to implicate Beijing because doing so might worsen the ongoing trade war. Trump's public prodigious appetite for bashing China is markedly different from how he speaks of Xi Jinping when among his trusted advisors. Privately, Trump is overly concerned about the tariff war, and he may not want to rock the boat. No pun intended. Until all the facts of the engagement are known. Right now, much is open to speculation, one source said. If all information is accurate, China has violated U.S. sovereignty and egregiously murdered American civilians, acts which demand a measured military response. Our source said it's unknown whether President Trump has communicated with Jinping in regards to the attack. He is not in the habit of disseminating private conversations. In closing, Truth Aquatics, the company that owned and operated the conception, has yet to release a transparent passenger manifest, and that document may hold a crucial clue as to why China would risk war with the United States by murdering a seemingly innocent group of people on a diving expedition. Yeah, seems odd, doesn't it? There were two Apple executives on board and a Disney executive or a Disney Imagineer. Now, I think that this is interesting. They obviously attacked that if this is the truth, and I suspect that it's pretty close to it. If this is the truth, there had to be someone on board that China deemed a threat. Don't you think? So, I don't know. But it's the best explanation I've had so far. And I am inclined to believe it because there's too many abnormalities in that story. There's just too many things wrong with that story. And I don't know. I'm going to stay on this. Any news that comes out about it, I'm going to stay on it and report to you. But to me, when I read this, I thought, that has a ring of truth to it. What do you guys think? Do you think that that's possible? I mean, this person was a Department of Defense source, and he was speaking under promise of anonymity. I don't know. Sure is better than any explanation anybody else has come up with. That's for sure. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll be looking for that because I do think that many of you have really, really good judgment. So let me know what you think. And let's go on. I don't want to belabor it, but let's look at this. Okay. Now, we were talking about ABACO. Let's look at this because this will give you a good indication. Please share this video
with everybody you know. None of us.
Okay, this is 9 minutes, and we're definitely not going to be looking at all 9 minutes, but I do want to show you this guy. Now, he is a resident of this, and you tell me, I don't see any crisis acting with him. I really don't. And I would be gobsmacked if he was. But let's listen to this. Let me go back to where. Okay. That's ABACO. Now let's listen to what he has to say.
Historian has moved on. This guy's going to give you an overview of what's going on in ABACO right now from his perspective. I want to give credit to the YouTube channel Never Lose Truth for bringing this to my attention. The link to Never Lose Truth will be in the description for you. I've added data and images coming out of the Bahamas to this original video to give you a visual on the geography and what's going on out there at the present time. Again, guys, please share this video with everybody you know.
Everyone, this is Bishop Strawn from Lifegate Christian Ministries in ABACO. Not the type person to ever come out and talk very much about what's happening or make any political statement, as many of you would be aware of. But I had to come on today because I am very upset and very angry of the misinformation that has been sent out to the Bahamian people, or persons who had no idea of the hell that we went through in ABACO. I lost my home, but came out with only the clothes on my back, as many Abaconians have. And the truth of the matter is that there is no gas stations in Marsh Harbor. There is no port. there is no power, and the power grid, and I've worked to BPL for over 25 years. The power grid and the distribution system in Marsh Harbor has totally been destroyed. And so the hopes of restoring power anytime soon there is impossible. There is no food stores. There is no hardware stores. There are no banks. The only thing that we did to survive over the last several days was scavenge through food stores, trying to pick up tuna fish cans or corned beef cans or water and whatnot. And there is no help. I am very frustrated and upset at the government because we received no help. Thank God for the Americans that came in through Treasure Key, bringing plane loads of stuff after stuff. Now I've been made to understand that our government has stopped the planes from coming in, and only God knows how those persons are going to get any kind of help or supplies. You could not even get on Bahamas Air. We paid $75. My son, my wife, and my youngest boy, my son, my wife, and myself, $75 per person, or Bahamas Air was not allowing you to get on the plane. Thank God for Western Air that came to deliver some stuff, and they decided that they were going to carry as much people as they can, and they did it for free. They did it for free. And our government had Bahamas Air charge us $75 to get over here in the Bahamas. My God, something is definitely wrong with that. Most of the churches are destroyed. Treasure Key is destroyed, and there are people who are in ABACO that may not have been affected as badly as we have been in Central ABACO, and the people in South ABACO has not been affected as badly as we've been. That they don't have any idea how terrible it is. The stench of dead body is unbelievable. There will be an outbreak of epidemic at some point. There is all kind of problems with keeping law and order in there. There are hardly any church left. Thank God our church was one of the few that is still standing. But it is unbelievable to me that lies would be said. And I am not political. I don't play the political game, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm a Bahamian, and if it's one thing that we should be all about is looking after Bahamians. And I'm frustrated and extremely angry about what is going on. If anybody have family members in ABACO, I'm telling you now, get them out by whatever means necessary. I'm glad that most of our persons are out of ABACO from our church, and I'm hoping that the rest can come out shortly. We have to regroup, and we have to get back in there to carry as much things that we can, water, food, supplies, whatever else we need. The bridge to ABACO connecting Little ABACO to mainland has been destroyed. Even they've been having some difficulties getting from Cooperstown into Treasure Key area. My wife and I had to stay in a car for several hours while we watched our house tumble down in the front of us, and we had to dash to another house and spend 7 to 8 hours to 220 plus miles per hour with our winds, just holding and praying on for dear life. And we spent the night in the car. Thank God for one of our neighbors who came over and took us in and gave us a dry place. The only thing we left ABACO with was the clothes on our bodies and our passports. And thank God we had our passports, because if we didn't have the passports and if we didn't have the $75 per person to pay to get off the island, we would have still been on the island today. I don't understand that for the life of me. I don't know who's listening, but I hope the whole of the Bahamas is, and I pray that those who are listening to me will share the video as much as they can. Sandy Point, South ABACO, if you can hear me, there's nothing in Marsh Harbor. Nothing there to support you. I'm North ABACO, if you could hear me, there's nothing there to support you. I just got a hot meal for the first time in 5 days when I landed here last night after being in Treasure Key from 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, standing on the line with a whole lot of people hundreds and hundreds of people all trying to get on the plane, only to find out from Bahamas Air that we had to pay to get out. Thank God for Western Air. Thank God for Western Air. I don't know who owns Western Air, but sir, may the blessings of the Lord be on you and your company for reaching out. You didn't have to load the planes up with people to get them out, but you were there, and we give God praise and glory for you, sir.
Now, I'm not gonna, because this is a longer video, but I think that this is gonna give you an idea of what is happening. And like the man said, some areas are better, but the area where he's from, decimated. Life cannot be supported. There's no clean drinking water. There's no power. There's barely any buildings standing. There's no gas stations, hardware stations, or hardware stores, anything. There's no food. So, yeah, and most of them, the ones that did survive, got out with the clothes on their back. And some of them couldn't get out at all because they were asking for $75 per person from Bahamian, I guess it was the Bahamian Air, and another company came in and transported as many people as they could for free. So, and he said that the Americans were coming in, but now they've stopped them. So, I don't know. It's horrible. This guy is a bishop. He has a church there. His church is still standing, but obviously nobody can live there because there's nothing to support life there anymore. So, yeah. So anybody that's telling you, oh, it's not that bad and they blew this all out of proportion, I don't know. There's a lot of disinformation out there, but this guy, I can tell you right now, is not a crisis actor because he says it so quickly without even thinking. He's not trying to boo-hoo and cry, and, he's telling you the way it is, and he's doing so without hesitation. There's no way he's making that up. I don't believe it. So, all right. That is that. And I do believe whatever they say the death toll is, I believe it'll be much higher because you can just look at some of these areas and know, okay, the people in those houses didn't survive. They didn't. Now, maybe they got to safety before the worst hit. I don't know. So, but if anyone was left in those houses, there's no survivors, really. And by now, because they don't have the manpower to get in there, and they're not letting other countries in, then there's no way they could survive this long with no food or water. It's only a few days that you can live without water, and you certainly can't drink that water because it would be seawater. So anyway, let's go back and see what else we can get into. Let me see. What do we have here? Okay, let's see. Let's look at this. Okay, it says bots might prove harder to detect in 2020 elections. USC Information Services Institute, USC ISI, computer scientist Emilio Ferrara has new research indicating that bots or fake accounts enabled by artificial intelligence on social media have evolved and are now better able to copy human behaviors in order to avoid detection. In the journal First Monday, research by Ferrara and colleagues, Luca Lucera, Ashok Deb, Sylvia Giordano, examined bot behavior during the U.S. 2018 elections compared to bot behavior during the U.S. 2016 elections. The researchers studied almost 250,000 social media active users who discussed the U.S. elections both in 2016 and 2018 and detected over 30,000 bots. They found that bots in 2016 were primarily focused on retweets and high volumes of tweets around the same message. However, as human social social activity online has evolved, so have bots. In 2018 election season, just as humans were less likely to retweet as much as they did in 2016, bots were less likely to share the same messages in high volume. Bots, the researchers discovered, were more likely to employ a multi-bot approach as if to mimic authentic human engagement around an idea. Also, during the 2018 elections, as humans were much more likely to try to engage through replies, the bots tried to establish a voice and add to dialogue and engage through the use of polls, a strategy typical of reputable news agencies and pollsters, possibly aiming at lending legitimacy to these accounts. In one example, a bot account posted an online Twitter poll asking if federal elections should require voters to show ID at the polls. It then asked Twitter users to vote and retweet. Lead author Emilio Ferrara noted, "Our study further corroborates this idea that there is an arms race between bots and detection algorithms. As social media companies put more efforts to mitigate abuse and stifle automated accounts, bots evolve to mimic human strategies. Advancement in AI enable bots producing more human-like content. We need to devote more efforts to understand how bots evolve and how more sophisticated ones can be detected. With the upcoming 2020 U.S. elections, the integrity of social media discourse is of paramount importance to allow a democratic process free of external influences." Interesting. So it'll be interesting to see what the Trump administration, deploys or employs to try to prevent this, because this is a huge problem, not just the bots, but the social media algorithms as a whole, because they're dictating what you see. And, if you're a conservative voice, you're going to be stifled. That's just the bottom line. And we know that. So, yeah. And we're aware of that. But how many people out there aren't aware of that and aren't even aware that they're being manipulated? Well, it would be hard to estimate, but I can believe that it's many. All right, let's go back here. I did want this to be short, so I don't want to, I think I'm going to leave the rest for tomorrow. Yeah, I think I am. All right. Oh, I'm just going to, one more thing. I really wanted to touch on this several times, and I've always missed it in my, no, is it not going to let me go? There we go. Yay. All right, let's look at this quickly. This is the last thing we'll cover. In the war against police officers, California is leading the way. Governor Gavin Newsom just signed a bill into law that would permit citizens to ignore policemen and policewomen in distress. It's a wonder they can even maintain a police department in a state where hatred for police is at an all-time high. Police are expected to risk their lives daily, but they cannot expect help from the general population. Short of defending the Alamo, I can think of no more dangerous job than being an officer of the law in California. Yeah, so if you, let's say you're just going about your business and you see a police officer in distress, and, perhaps there's people beating them up or whatever. Now, it is now lawful in California for you to just walk on and say, oh, well, sucks to be him. And nothing will happen to you. There's no obligation for you to render any help or call for help or no obligation at all. In fact, let's say you come across a police officer that's been shot and you see it, you're not under any obligation to render any first aid or call for help, call 911. Nope, you can just walk on. It says, just enjoy the rest of your day. Oh, gee, that police officer was shot. Oh, well. Can you believe that? I mean, I don't know. I was raised with so much respect for the police. Now, I fully understand that not all of them deserve that kind of respect. However, we do have to have respect for the office and law enforcement in general, or we will just, descend into complete chaos. This is beyond for me. I can't believe that this is actually a law in the United States of America. California Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom signed legislation allowing the public to refuse helping officers in distress. California Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, on Tuesday signed a bill that no longer requires any able-bodied person 18 years of age or older in the state to help an officer who requires assistance during an arrest. The Sacramento Bee reported that the old law, the California Posse Comitatus Act of 1872, was common in the country's early days, but Senator Bob Hertzberg, a Los Angeles Democrat who sponsored the bill, called the old law a vestige of a bygone era. The law was employed to help catch runaway slaves, the report said. I don't know about that. I would need to look that up, and if any of you know if that is the fact, please let me know. The old law made it a misdemeanor that carried a fine of up to $1,000 for refusing to help a police officer who requested assistance during an arrest. As a direct consequence of this law, police will think twice before putting themselves in danger, just as police in Baltimore, St. Louis, and Chicago already do. The result could mean more murders and various other crimes. And you know what? Even if that act, the Posse Comitatus Act of 1872, was, originally employed to help officers arresting runaway slaves, well, that's certainly not a problem now, is it? We don't have any runaway slaves anymore. So I think if a police officer is in distress in any way, and there are people close by that can assist, they should, unless that police officer is doing something that's completely out of line and abusive or whatever. So I don't know, but let me know what you guys think about this, because I think it sucks like a Hoover. All right. Well, I think I'm going to call it a night here. It's already 12:25, so it's already September 9th, Monday. All right. Well, I will be back today at some point. And for now, you guys have a great night. Sleep well, stay safe, and keep seeking truth. I hope to see you back here soon. Good night.